Today, we face a sobering truth. Political violence in America has escalated to a new level. And at the MeidasTouch Network, we stand firmly against violence of any kind. Hello, I'm Dr. Haydée Brown.
And I'm Dr. Sonya Sloan.
And we are AYA,
Black and Brown Women Disruptors in Healthcare and Beyond.
This week, the headlines aren't just about politics, they're about survival. Conservative activist Charlie Kirk was shot and killed while speaking at a university event in Utah. The images of him being rushed to the hospital were shocking. Still more importantly, they underscored a disturbing truth. The rising tide of political violence in America has reached a new and dangerous moment. It also has returned to a dangerous moment that existed during the civil rights era. So from a medical perspective, specifically as surgeons, we understood the insurmountable stats that Kirk was up against with that shooting. When you say, Dr. Sloan?
Dr. Brown, this week has been so hard. And so to our, followers and people that are watching, take a deep breath. It's been a lot this week. And so again, as medical professionals, we want to put a different perspective on the gravity of this moment. Is like when we talk about a gunshot wound, something that's like a high power rifle, it's not just about the bullet that it enters or it exits. It's really about what happens in between that bullet entering and exiting the body. Like low velocity weapons, a rifle is totally different. It carries massive kinetic energy. And when I say energy, that means the force that's transpired through that body. And so when the energy transfers in a body, it creates what surgeons call cavitation. And a better way to think about that is it makes a hole, if you will, and it doesn't just make a hole, it explodes in that space of tissue. And so it creates this shock wave that damages the muscle, the blood vessels, the organs, anything is going to expand, and it literally tears it apart, you guys. And so doctors have to deal with that cavity and that collapse of it. And that's, soft tissue damage, that's bleeding, that's destruction far beyond just the body being shot, in moving in the body and out of the body. So it's not just about the size of the bullet. It's really about the speed of the bullet, the energy, as well as the chaos that it creates within that soft tissue. And so on top of all of that, in this horrible incident, the time and the resources that really mattered most for Kirk to be transported to a nearest hospital. The next major hospital was more than 45 minutes away. So he was taken to, I think it's called Timpugnow Regional Orem in Utah. And it was not what we know to be a level 1 or a level 2 hospital. So what that means is the emergency room doctors and nurses, the operating room staff, the surgeons, the general surgeons or cardiothoracic surgeons, if they had one, were faced with a daunting challenge to attempt to save someone's life up from one of the most lethal injuries possible. And they didn't have the full resources to do that like a designated trauma facility, Dr. Brown. They didn't have, they were up against, crazy odds.
And Dr. Sloan, we can talk about, right? I've worked at a level 1 trauma center, a level 2 trauma center, you have as well. It means that you have trauma surgeons in-house 24/7. You have a vascular surgeon in-house 24/7. You have interventional radiology, cardiographic surgeon. Yeah. You have all the all the radiologists to read certain studies. Mm-hmm. When you have a major trauma, the type of trauma that Kirk suffered from, you need to be at a level 1 or level 2 trauma center. And unfortunately, that's not where he ended up. And it's not like those resources were available, which gets into a whole different discussion. But, when you speak about that violence, what you were talking about, the kinetic energy, just the wrath through the soft tissues that happens with these bullets. I flashed to the Sandy Hook elementary school shooting, right? That's where you had 20 first graders, 6 and 7-year-olds, you guys, and 6 adult staffers that were killed. That was on December 14th, 2012. And that incredibly brutal crime did not spark a change in gun control in the United States. And so let's just look at this in terms of a broader reality. Gun violence in the United States of America has already claimed more than 28,000 lives in just the first 9 months of this year, 2025. That does not happen in a vacuum. It thrives in an of division, where rhetoric is weaponized and disagreements become justification for bloodshed. Experts warn we're sliding into a dangerous cycle where threats against leaders, journalists, and everyday folks are no longer shocking. Multiple politicians, including AOC, canceled their political events over this coming weekend. So this isn't just about one candidate or one party. You know, when violence replaces debate, democracy is on life support. Words ignite action, and when those actions silence voices, our constitutional rights, free speech, free expression, safety, are all under fire. They're stripped from each and every one of us. So gun violence in America is not just this abstract issue. We all know that it's a reality, a daily reality for thousands of families, and the numbers are grim. In 2022, more than 48,000 people died from gun-related causes in the United States, and almost half of those were suicides. So beyond your personal tragedies, gun violence is increasingly encroaching on political life. Earlier this year in Minnesota, a man carried out coordinated shootings targeting state legislators, including Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman. 2 people were killed, Speaker Hortman and her husband, their dog, and others were wounded. And it was a shocking escalation of political violence, but still reminiscent of our history when you think of people like Fred Hampton, Medgar Evers, Martin Luther King Jr., that were also assassinated. These incidents are not isolated. Experts are tracking a rise in ideologically and politically motivated threats, assaults, and shootings. And while such cases remain a small fraction of overall gun homicides, their symbolic weight is enormous. They erode the sense of safety in public life, they silence open debate, and shake the foundation of democratic institutions, and even in places of education. Let's roll the next clip.
Tonight, Colorado authorities identifying 16-year-old Desmond Holley as a student who opened fire at Evergreen High School using a revolver. Investigators did not say where the shooter got the gun, but said he was radicalized by an extremist network.
And so this week, at the same time, literally, another horrific scene unfolded at Evergreen High School in Colorado. And what began as a typical day for these high school students ended in tragedy. When the gunfire erupted inside the building, kids were running every direction. Officials say that 2 students were critically wounded before the 16-year-old suspect, Desmond Holley, turned the weapon on himself and took his life. And so investigators are still piecing all these things together, how he got the firearm, and this question of online extremists and influencing his role in all of this. And so this is not only a disruption. This was not just a change in our daily habits. What Colorado has seen is gun violence in schools several times. But this also now has sparked across the country some other disruptions, including the historically Black colleges and universities. There were several of them that were forced to lock down in place yesterday and cancel classes yesterday and tomorrow because of receiving different types of threats of violence. And so for students on those campuses, the message is still very chilling, if you will, and very clear. The fear of gunfire doesn't just stop at the classroom. This is shadows these people, our lives, everyone's daily life now. And so I just want us to sort of take a step back and look at the bigger picture here. The bigger picture here is that firearms have always been the leading cause of death for children and adolescents, ages 1 through 19, for years, not just last year, but years. So guns kill more people than car accidents, than cancer, than congenital conditions, and even heart disease, you guys. So among teens, homicide accounts for much of the toll, but the number is rising so fast. Since 2013, the gun death rate for children and teen has climbed more than 100% for that age group. So I'm not even going to talk about the fact that there's a stark disparity for Black children and Black teens that is far beyond the likelihood of them dying from gun violence than their white peers. So the facts are these 3 things. Number 1, gun violence among youth is a public health crisis, and we know this. Deaths are rising, disparities persist, and usually this chaotic thing that we're facing now has become the top cause of childhood mortality. This is crazy that we're living this moment. And so secondly, there's a political violence we're now dealing with via firearms. And it's becoming more and more visible every day, not just the shootings, but the threat of disruption of schools, of college, of public life and churches. And then thirdly, policy, responding to all of this. There's a lag and we know it. And it's far behind the scale of the harm that's being done. So we've already known that, what's been in the work, what's going on to cause a safe storage laws and background checks and child access prevention and even community-based intervention and awareness. But at the end of the day, our society cannot protect our children from gun deaths. It just can't. It hasn't even tried. The safeguards in the classrooms and civic spaces of violence, they're trying to do some things and teaching our kids how to do lockdowns and in the case that they may have a open shooter, but that puts our society under strain and stress that they shouldn't be in schools. So the question is, what do we do next? Unless change comes, the numbers are just going to continue to climb, and you guys know it. More lives will be lost, unfortunately, and more fear is already being sown in very places that should be safe: schools, churches, mosques, temples. And speaking of which, Dr. Brown, how exactly are the powers that be right now making America safe again? That's the question at hand. Are we great yet? Are we?
Let's roll that clip.
There's never been an effort like this across all the government agencies. We had historical, unprecedented cooperation among my agency, HHS, with Marty McGarry and Jay Bhattacharya, all working hand in glove with each other. All of us are aligned. All of us are balancing complex issues with many, many diverse stakeholders. We're looking at economic impacts and health impacts and environmental impacts. And we're trying to make a policy that is going to work.
You know, what we just saw in that CBS clip says it all. RFK Jr. stood at the podium and promised America a blueprint for health. But once you look past the headlines, the gaps speak a lot louder than any words. Yes, the Make America Healthy Again MAHA report calls out chronic diseases, life expectancy, and even environmental risks. But the main killer of children and teens in the United States is not measles, although we've talked about it a lot. It's not COVID-19. It's not cancer. The MAHA report really reports nearly nothing on one of the top killers of kids in the United States of America, gun violence. So let's get to the facts. Gun violence is now the leading cause of death for children and teens in the United States, not asthma, not car crashes, guns. Over 4,700 young lives are lost in a single year. And yet in this document claiming to quote unquote, make America healthy again, the solutions for gun violence are buried, vague, and politically safe. And you know what? Here's the truth. You can't talk about kids' health without talking about bullets in classrooms. You can't rebuild trust in public health while ignoring what's killing our children. And we've seen what this violence does, right? At Sandy Hook, the AR-15 rounds were so devastating. It was reported that some children were only identifiable by the clothes they wore, right? So this is not theoretical. It's real, it's brutal, and it's preventable. So let's talk a little bit about policy. During the federal assault weapons ban, which was from 1994 to 2004, mass shootings declined. After it expired, woof, they skyrocketed. One peer-reviewed study estimated we could have prevented nearly 40 mass shootings had the ban remained in place. So Sandy Hook, it's possible, could not have happened if we had a federal assault weapons ban. And a major RAND review confirmed bans on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines work, but only when clearly defined and enforced. And the data, visual, doesn't lie. Let's just take a look at the chart comparing the U.S. to other developed nations. That's us, the United States, all the way with those tall bars. Just take a look. America leads in gun ownership, which is shown in the blue, and gun deaths, shown in the red, by a landslide, versus Canada, the UK, Australia, Germany, Japan, so other developed nations. And we lead it by a landslide. Where others have tightened laws and watched violence fall, we did the opposite. We expanded access and we have paid with lives. After the Port Arthur massacre, Australia banned military-style weapons. After Dunblane, the UK took action. After Christchurch, New Zealand banned assault rifles and launched a buyback within weeks. And since then, no mass shootings of that scale. This is not strange to us, right? We in the United States had an assault weapons ban. But meanwhile, here in the US, 120 firearms per 100 residents. Canada has 35. The UK, less than 5 firearms per 100 residents. So let's be clear, Black and Brown communities bear the weight of this crisis most. There's systemic neglect, there's neighborhood violence, and there's policy inaction. So this MAHA report gave us headlines and sound bites, but it skipped the very urgent chapter. It's a leading, blinking red light. A real public health agenda would face the gun epidemic head on with funding, prevention, and policy that saves lives. This isn't something that's theoretical. It has been done in other developed countries to great success. So not more silence, not more deflection. Those are not actions. Because every day that we wait, another family gets the call that no parent should ever have to answer. And that silence, that omission, is the loudest message of them all.
So we want you guys to speak up. We need you guys at rallies. We need you coming to the forefront when a voice can be heard. You can no longer stay silent. Stay informed. We want you to stay vigilant. And remember, the greatest tool, most powerful tool is truth to power. So thank you for watching. We are AYA, contributors of the MeidasTouch Network and proud members of the Meidas Mighty. Please subscribe, like, share, and follow for more updates. Have a great week.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.